Welcome to First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, the birthplace of congregational humanism. We carry on that tradition of free thought today, dedicated to promoting a free search for truth, meaning, and justice. Our web address is firstunitarian.org. Thank you for joining us.
So I had this original sermon titled, "What's in a Name?" this week. And when I asked myself that, I decided to look through a lot of different texts like etymology charts or linguistic theory, which was all horribly boring. And I finally happened upon this Ocean Vuong memoir that opened something up in me. Not because it gave me an answer to the question, what's in the name? But because it responded with another question that I didn't quite know how to answer. Where am I? And what does it mean to respond to that question with our name? I'm Sophia. You are Jacob or Denny or Adam or Ben or Catherine or Heather or Ewan. And here we are, gathered in this sanctuary we call First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis. But how does the simple speaking of our name, tell us where we are? Even when that name is only the tiniest little speckle of who we are. Ocean Vuong speaks of a rose. A single bloom, he reminds us, might just last a week or two. A human life, on average, maybe 72 years, give or take. First Unitarian has been alive for 165 years. And yet, even so, the ligaments, the fibers, the bones of all of our living bodies will, of course, one day break down and return to the earth. And our favorite flowers are going to wilt, they're going to die, they're going to bloom again within our lifetimes. And so will some of our favorite people. No matter how much birth or death lifts us up or breaks us open. If we are fortunate, the life of a community like this one is going to ripple outward beyond our time. But even our most cherished names like First Unitarian Society, the kinds of names we speak with reverence, with maybe aching pleas, will always, inevitably, break down through swirls of entropy or soil or rock into air, transformed into compounds we can't even name. Over spans of time we can't even imagine. And still, to speak a name is to resist that inevitability. To say a name is to declare there is something infinite here. Even when we're lost, even when we cry out across time and ask, where am I? To say a name with care, with reverence, is to begin to make holy what might otherwise pass away unnoticed. Names, when held tenderly, have the power to make the ordinary sacred. So how does a name like First Unitarian Society do just that? When we hear that name, we might recall a bold legacy. FUS is one of the first, if not the first, humanist congregations in this country. This is ground zero for a powerful experiment we call humanism, not only in Minneapolis, but throughout the world. The name First Unitarian has a story. It's a shared one that's stitched together in fragments in rooms named after founders and quiet wisdoms of elders who've walked these halls for decades. Even the scent and the sound of this building, which has held 165 years of breath and dust and song and conflict and aching love. Thanks to the tireless and loving work of our archivists, Wendy and George and countless others, that shared story has become increasingly knowable and touchable and traceable. But the truth is, the story of First Unitarian is also wildly particular, infinitely varied. each of you carries your own version of what First Unitarian Society is. For some, this place evokes pride, for others, safety, for others still, confusion, frustration even, memory, meaning. Maybe this name reminds you of giddy E-squared outings or owl lock-ins or that new friend you ran into at the mini-meal last week. Maybe it reminds you of something brave you said in a support group, or maybe it even reminds you of the 12 emails you need to send to this or that person to make sure that thing actually happens. Shakespeare would actually agree with Ocean Vuong here. The original title of this sermon, What's in a Name, actually comes from Romeo and Juliet, a story so heart-wrenchingly precise because of the names that keep love apart. Classic tale. Juliet asks this burning question, not because she doesn't know what a name is, but because she does know what names can do. What's in a name, she asks. That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. A rose, she's saying, would still be a rose. You could call it a hose or a horse. It would still carry the same beauty. Its scent would still seduce us. And yet, we only seem to marvel when the rose is in full bloom. Not when it's still a seed, not when it's just a tight green little bud or a brambly tangle of thorns. We name it, we celebrate it when it's its most beautiful. Why? Maybe we name what overwhelms us. Maybe when beauty or love or pain or longing exceeds what we can hold, we reach out for a name to ground ourselves. And that can be dangerous too. I mean, thinking of the story of Romeo and Juliet, Montagues, Capulets, these family names, they begin to act like fences, flags of ownership, declarations of loyalty or exclusion. The very names that say, you belong, can also say, you do not. And of course, this isn't only Shakespeare's world, this is our world as well. I saw a video recently of a man crying on the steps of a courthouse. Maybe you've seen it too. His wife, we gather in this video, has just been taken into ICE custody. She did everything legally, he says. She followed every rule. We have 6 kids waiting for us to come home, he cries, again and again. Her only violation? A name, a nationality. A label our government has deemed unacceptable. This woman was not detained for something she did, but for the name that follows her, for the association that name calls to mind in someone else's system. Today, names are bearing the weight of life-altering tragedy, of children separated from their mothers, of people disappearing into systems with no accountability for their well-being or even their lives. Names shape how we are seen, how we are judged, how we are held or dismissed. And yet still, names can remain one of our most intimate forms of sacred speech. They can be containers of reverence. They can be containers of curses as well. They're probes, sometimes intrusive, into our identities. They're cloaks against the shadows of the past. They're whispers of intention cast into the world. Names are special because they evolve. They're not fixed. They're reshaped by the lives they hold and the love they are offered. They help make sense of what surrounds us, but they also give us something to grasp in the face of mystery. On Friday, I was sitting around a table with a few close friends on the 4th of July, if you choose to recall. And this particular 4th of July, for myself, and I imagine some of you, carried some complicated weight. especially for those of us who may feel that this country has, in too many ways, failed to live up to the promise of its own name. And we were eating skewers of veggies and meat and passing burgers around the table, and my girlfriend, in a gentle attempt to lift the spirit of that celebration, asked us, "What do we actually like about the United States?" And we all laughed, a little bit nervously, because at first it felt a lot easier to name the things we don't love, right? The guns, the fossil fuels, the prisons, police, the way the country music, the patriotism, the fireworks can sometimes sound like a hymn to forgetting all of that. But eventually, we did come up with real answers, true ones. One friend spoke about the magic of beach days. She described growing up visiting Jersey Shore every July 4th and how all the little Jersey families and friend groups would show up. They'd spread their towels side by side. They'd laugh if a beach ball bounced into someone else's court, sharing for one sacred afternoon the same wide open body of sand and sea. Another friend talked about the back roads, how in this country you can drive for hours and pass through cornfields, mountains, deserts, forests, cities, every biome in a different mood, a different sky. Another friend of mine who immigrated from Chile smiled softly and shrugged when it was his turn. He said, "My favorite thing about the US, my wife." And we all laughed. Not the kind of laugh that dismisses, but the kind of laugh that says, "Oh, of course it's Athena." But there was something deeper there too, right? It was a quiet recognition that if not for her name, her citizenship, her nationality, he might not be there at all. So here's my invitation to you, my challenge for this week. In a week that commemorates the naming of a country called the United States of America, when someone asks you, "Where do you live?" and you might answer, "The US," what does that name mean to you? What image does it conjure? What ache? What hope? What claim? And perhaps more specifically for this congregation, when someone asks you, "Where do you worship on Sundays?" and you say, "First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis," what does that name mean to you? Because no name is ever just a name. It's a place where memory and meaning meet. It's a vessel that can carry both the harm of history and the heartbeat of something still worth building. Our names do not need to share the same language as empire. So what isn't a name? Your name, our name, this congregation's name? That's a question worth answering, not just today, but again and again. And with it, what scent rises with it, what memory, what hope. Because when spoken with care, your name and this congregation's name become the very way we name the sacred in our midst. It can be the way we see the sacred, not just each other in this community, but outside of it, in the rose bushes, in the people with different names. To name something as sacred means that it's also worth fighting for. May it be so.
Thanks for listening. You can find much more about humanism and what's happening at First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis by visiting our website at firstunitarian.org.